Welcome, 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 everyone. It is the third Saturday, and we are doing Black Dollar Saturday here with the Black Business Initiative. It's your girl, Jice Johnson, and I am super excited today. I have a couple of guests, and we're going to dig right on in. I want to take a moment and ask you to please share this information out. As you know, the Black Business Initiative is here to bring you good information. So every month we are doing a workshop here. We will once again be live in person when the world opens back up and it's safe for us to join in large groups again. But we always want to give a shout out to Brother Jeff and the Cultural Center. We missed Black Dollar Saturday. So, we're just trying to bring whatever little piece we can and keep it going. So I'm going to bring up our two guest speakers today. Some of you, most of you, many of you are familiar with Noreen Lavallias of Operation Hope. And we have a special guest here, her very own brother, Carl Lavallias, who is with us from, where are you out of, Carl?
Dallas, Texas.
Out of Dallas, Texas. So we have a special treat today. So we're going to talk about some things that are affecting our community from a financial perspective, which of course is, a hot topic right now, just in general, as we're thinking about, what's going on in the world and how this is affecting the Black community specifically, but also some of the things that we need to look at on a regular basis, right? And so how does the Black community continue to build and amass wealth, pass on intergenerational wealth, and just overall have a healthier financial position for you and your family? And so we have some amazing financial experts here who can talk us through that. And so I'm going to be here in the background, but I'm going to let Noreen jump off here and introduce herself, and let's get started.
Hi, and good afternoon, everybody. Jice, I'm always so excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yes, the reason the community of Denver and surrounding areas know me is because I'm notable, and the reason they do not know my brother is because he is not. And so I've offered him the opportunity to stand in my limelight along with me today to share some wealth, as he is indeed an industry professional. But I'm the younger sister, just know that you know that, and he learned everything that he learned from me. So I'll give him an opportunity to briefly, Jice, feel free to mute him at any moment, introduce himself as well. But I work with Operation Hope, and of course I represent the largest financial literacy company in the US. I'm very passionate about what I'm doing, very passionate about looking at from a cultural standpoint and a cultural enrichment standpoint and our own financial empowerment, and looking to see how we can navigate to a position of empowerment versus one of discouragement when we're talking financially. I was talking to someone recently and they said, we've been talking about financial empowerment for 50 years. And my response to them was, at least we're still talking about it. When the conversation cease, that's when we have a problem. So Carl and I are going to present to you today some different elements, our top 10 financial things that we see that are happening in the Black community specifically, and then how we can navigate towards financial empowerment and achievement in those areas. So Carl, do you want to introduce yourself as well as you stand in my shadow?
Okay. I am Carl Lavallias. I'm president of nCredible Consulting. I'll begin by saying anytime your younger sister has to say she's the younger as a woman, something's wrong if it's not obvious. And so I'm happy to be here too, to share with this time. Look forward to the conversation that is ahead. I'll quickly say that after graduating from HBCU, then I spent 16 years in corporate as an accounting professional, both in public accounting and private. I spent another 16 years or so as a nonprofit executive. And then the last 11 years as a consultant. That is, I saw so many things that I believed that needed to be fixed or helped or strengthened within our business community that I have focused on these last 11 years of helping small businesses, and look forward to sharing with my sister and sharing with those who are online out of our experience, our expertise, and more so that which we gain just by the conversation.
So Thank you so much. As we go through today, we're going to really kind of focus on a personal and a business concept. Again, as you have industry experts, feel free to put in the chat anything that you have, any questions that you have. I'm sure I'll probably have to answer for my brother because he won't know. But all in all, we're here to enrich your day, and we're here to make sure that we at least walk away with some actionable items. So let's get started. Jice, do you have anything you want to start with before we get started? If not, we're going to continue on. So I'm going to be looking at everything from a personal standpoint, right? And when we're looking at a personal financial standpoint, and then we're going to each give you like the top 5 things that we see. So one thing I want to recognize that as a Black community, African American community, we have a spending ability that is just astronomical. If you look in 2018, African Americans spent about $1.3 trillion. Now let me just say that again, $1.3 trillion in different avenues of spending. But what handicaps us as a community is where we spend our money. And so when we look at different aspects and different amounts of inequity versus income inequity, we have to look and say, we make the money. We have notable jobs. We've had the come up of, number of years, but where do we make the money and where do we spend it? So one of the things when you look at the beauty industry, and we like looking good and we like hair and nails and all of that but African Americans spend about 90% of funding the beauty community. So when you look at all the Revlons and you look at all the top-notch beauty areas around town for makeup and such, our spending is about 90%. And so when you look at the inequality in wealth building, it's where we spend our money. It's not that we don't obtain it. And it's going through and saying, when you're looking by the age 30 and you're looking at a white person compared to a clear person, a clear person I call white person compared to African American, then the spending gap is about $147,000. The older we get, we find that the distance in spending becomes a lot further. So by the time the average African American is 60 years old, and that same clear person, white person, is then 60 years old, the gap turns to about $1 million worth of wealth for the white community versus the African American community. And then you have to say, so where's the disparity? It started at 147,000 in 30 years. It rose to $1 million in a gap difference. Where does that come from? And that comes from our spending, quite honestly. And it's what we buy things on. Because one, we got to look good. And if we're looking good, we got to drive good. And if we driving good, it has to be top notch. We got everything, blinged out and blanged out and all the different things, but it doesn't contribute to our overall generational wealth. When you look at the disparity in home ownership, the average African American purchases their first home by age 48. And so think about that. If you have gone to college and you graduated college 22, but you rented until you were 48, then in essence, you were paying a mortgage. You just weren't paying your mortgage. So when you look at the top number one thing in our community that we need to consider, it is where I'm spending. And so look at yourself personally and think about where you're spending your money. In our community, in the personal soap and bath industry, last year from the African American concept, we spent $5,733,000 just on soap and bath products. Now, I do want you to buy soap. And I do want you to buy a bath because I want you to look good, but you don't automatically have to buy the top-notch thing. And you want to just consider that when you're looking at wealth building, some of the things that benefit us instead of inhibit us is certainly purchasing of home, purchasing of land. That's the upside of what I'm seeing now. We're seeing a lot of land purchases, even if it's just, a block here, it's a subdivision there. That's upward mobility. Even when you're looking for generational wealth of purchasing a home, that is upward mobility. And you may have to start off in a brief condo and graduate all the way up to the home of your dreams. But the start is what we want to be able to do. So the other part when we're looking at that start is then how do you qualify for that? And then how do you make sure you are in the game financially? And one is when you're looking at what devastates our community is we come out of the banking industry. For whatever reason, we don't trust banks. And we start using those elements such as prepaid cards, and you see the commercials on TV. I got my net spin and I got all of these different things. And they cripple you because what happens when you're in the banking environment, right? You open up a savings account, thus opening up a checking account. Thus, you can open now a credit card because you have graduated services. Now that credit card leads to home buying. Now that home buying leads to generational wealth. And then you don't have to stop at one home. Now you can buy several homes. But it's not going to happen if you don't have a relationship with the bank. And so you want to be able to start there. And we think in our culture and community that we are getting away with something when you use these off-brand prepaid cards and you get your check and you go cash it and nobody needs to know where my money is and all of that. And the only person that's hurt in that particular entanglement is yourself, because you're not going through a banking relationship. And now when you're ready to buy a house, it's almost like, okay, so who are you? And of course, since I work for Operation Hope, I must say the elements of budgeting and credit. Those are not words that are devastating to our community. They can be a sense of enrichment and empowerment. Do you know where you're spending your money? Do you know where it's going in your household? Are you doing needless and interest spending along the way? And then the other association of that is with credit. If your credit score is under 620 and it continues to be under 620, it takes you out of the buying rim and you want to get back to where it's empowered. Now, I will tell you, as a regional vice president within Operation Hope, this is what we do day in and day out. We enrich our community by increasing credit scores, increasing savings, and decreasing debt. And if we do this at no cost, and we do this at no cost across the country, I'm telling you here, you have a coach in your corner. You have a cheerleader who can help to get you on to the next phase. Often we're crippled because we don't know where to go and we don't know how to start. And so we're here to get you started and get you onto that area phase of success. I recently did a podcast and I talked about someone who had a 514 credit score, and that could have been crippling to that individual, and they could have kept on with their current buying and non-budgeting and endless spending. But that person decided to really drill down. They took the advice that we gave from Operation Hope perspective and just closed on their home last week. But not only did they close on their home, they closed with a 715 credit score. So listen to that. They started at a 514 a little over a year ago, and they closed at a 715. So what does that really mean? Not only did they buy a house, but they were able to buy a house with probably little down payment and probably little interest rate associated with it. So some of the things that you want to be able to do is to empower yourself. And that sometimes just means drawing a line in the sand and saying enough is enough is enough. Again, we can have the same conversations for 50 years, or we can have the same conversation for 1 year and then drill down and do something about it. Because I will tell you, one of the things that I used to do is buy water all the time. You always hear the Starbucks analogy. I bought water all the time, and I used that one because I did. And I bought it 3 times a week, and I spent $10, a week on water, and you would think nothing of it. But when you do that and you do it continuously, that's $40 a month. And then when you look at that $40 a month, and then you add that on, you're spending over $400 a year. So think about that same criteria and component when you're dealing with something you buy all the time. If you have all these different streaming channels and you're not utilizing them, $19 a month is $220 a year. If you're using something and they're telling you, oh, it's $5 a month and that's it, that's not a big deal. Well, give somebody $60 a year if you want to. $60 a year could be a stock purchase. So you want to be able to look and see where you are indeed spending money and what could benefit you versus cripple you. And so, of course, as I said, as the Regional Vice President of Operation Hope, we are here to help you. I'll put my phone number in the chat when I'm done, and then that can help you reach me as well. The other thing that when you're talking about what cripples our community is the word approved. Oh my goodness, you've been approved. And we so happy and we excited. We go to get that car and we are approved. Girl, I was approved. And you calling everybody, girl, I was approved. And the thing that we don't ask is, what interest rate was I approved at? And that's what should be the thing that stops you, because certainly a difference in being approved at a 29% interest rate versus being approved at a 0.1 interest rate. For homeownership, you want to drill down. If you're doing documents, do not just sign arbitrarily. People get mad at me because I don't sign computerized documents. I need to sign something I have control over, because here's what you need to know. When you're signing a document, there's a reason someone is asking you to sign your name. It is because you just made an agreement. And so in that, if you don't know what you're signing and you're just arbitrarily, ooh, I was approved. Where do I sign? Where do I go? You could be paying for a car for the next 500 years at 700% interest. So take a step back from that approval really clearly. If they give you 96 pages of signed documents, read 97, because make sure there's no invisible ink on the 97th page, but know what it is you're getting yourself into. And Jice, keep my time honestly now, because Carl is a minister, so he gonna want to talk over me and break in. So keep my time honestly. The other part you want to be able to look at is student loan debt. And when you're looking, the average African-American woman actually has more student loan debt than the average African-American man. And you want to look at that because most certainly a degree is needed and necessary in our upward ability, in our income equality, in making right wrong, in having a foot in the community, and the difference between being a menial job than a prominent job. My brother told me last week, as my auntie goes into the census and she does a deep dive into the census, and he was telling me the quality of our own family, in that in the 1920s, our grandfather, when we went through and he looked through and he saw all the different professions along the way, and they were more menial and housekeeping and such, our grandfather was a professor even at that time. And so it's interesting because that literary aspect is run through our family. But in order to be a professor even back then, he had to go to school. He had to go to college. And to be a professor now, you got to go to school. You have to go to college. And generally, any position that you have to go to school, you have to go to college. But you want to think smartly about that. Student loan debt, and I see this on average, can be up to $250,000 on your credit report. And then that's just daunting in the payback scheme of things. And yes, we certainly understand that there are different aspects and supposed to be components. And I hear it all the time of, I'm just going to, get a job in the inner city. I'm going to meet the different merits and I'll work for a nonprofit and my student loan debt will be dissolved. Float upon that cloud if you want to and think that reality is going to come into play. Less than 1% of loan forgiveness programs are actually approved. So one thing you can do, and it's not crippling yourself, is do this. There are so many certification programs out there. Yale has one. Harvard right now has 67 free classes. If you pay $100, you can actually get a printed certification for Harvard. And you can use certifications to get into the employer that you want to be because you're certified in those manners. And then when you get into that notable employer, guess what? They usually have reimbursement programs for going to school. And now you can obtain your actual degree from that employer without being crippled with debt. So I say that to say we need to be able to think of a different way to do things that doesn't paralyze our community and doesn't paralyze you financially. And there are different aspects and stepping stones that we can do. We just have to think, as Chet Sisk, Chet Sisk is my favorite. And as he says all the time, think as if there were no box. Because the same textbooks that they have at Harvard, they have at your community college. It's just going to cost you a whole lot more because you have someone standing in front of you that has a little fluff, but it's the same knowledge. And so think about that scale a little bit differently. And then, Jice, keep me honest on my time. Text me if you need to. The other thing I'm going to talk about is something that Jice talked about a few weeks ago. And it is the quick money schemes. It is the flowers. It is the pseudo susu that's not really a susu, but they're calling it that because they know there's a cultural aspect. And if it's cultural and this black, power and Black Lives Matter, we like, ooh, we're gonna jump on it. But we always are on some type of a quick fix. And we're always on type of a trust me. I had someone call me the other day and they said, invest, trust me. And I said, I don't trust strangers with my money. I barely trust family. You want me to trust a stranger? But that trust me element. And so I would say, instead of looking for the quick fix that's going to, in essence, rob you, look at something that we're looking at in our community for overall enhancement. We're looking at, in every community in which you're in, community building. We're looking at, we have financial classes. Operation Hope offers financial classes. Get your network together of 15 or more people. We will come and teach you the right way, the substance of credit and budget and savings and your rights as a consumer. We have different nonprofits on every single scale that will teach you. We have the Black Business Initiative that will show you how to scale up your business the right way. You have the By the Block Initiative. You have different change agents. We have so much in our community that we're looking for the quick fix, and we're looking for the invest $500 by 10 a.m. and by noon you're going to have 8 million back. And we're looking for those quick fixes. But here's a quick fix that we're not looking into. Apple is about to do a stock split on August 24th. And that stock split is going to garner you, if you have one share of Apple right now, you will then have 4 shares of Apple. Tesla, the car, is about to do a 1-to-5 stock split. If you have 1 share right now, you'll have 5 then. And those are notable ways that different communities make money in the African American community and such. And when we talk about that parallel gap of wealth, you have to think about that parallel exists because in that 30-year gap period, something happened in other communities where they sustained their wealth, but they held on to their monies more than ours. Yes, we can look good. And if you watch my Facebook, I do financial tips of the day, and driving it off in that $80,000 car looks spectacular. You look amazing in it. But if you broke and in that car, when you get out of it and get to the gas station and you trying to pull 4 quarters together, then there's a problem. And so when we're talking about what is really crippling our community, I just challenge you to think a different way of your own finances and how you cannot create consistency in your own finances, but you can create generational wealth. And generational wealth is doing something that will sustain your grandchildren. Other cultures think about their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren and how can I make sure I have wealth passed down. We often think about how do I keep $20 in my pocket today? And so my challenge to you and my encouragement to you is we have it all within us to do it. We have that innate ability to survive whatever it is. That's why we can survive wearing these masks like we are, because we've had different constraints upon us all of our lives since slavery time. So wearing a mask, is that all you need me to do? I got that. But we constrain and we confine our own selves financially based on our own spending habits. So I just challenge you that as we go through, think about your own resources that you have. Think about your own family. Think about your own spending. And then I'm here to help you. As a company, I'm here to help you. I've managed about 27 individuals in different states in different capacities, everything from teaching small business and the elements and components of small business and how to get started, from how to handle your own personal finances. So I will put my information in the chat and you can certainly reach me. I'm very passionate about enrichment of one person at a time. My brother isn't. He's going to talk about the business aspect, and business doesn't care about enriching anything of a business, but I care about you as a person and holistically want to make you better along the way. And so I'm here to help. And so as I pass the reins over to Carl, hopefully he'll be literate enough so you'll be able to understand him. He was born with a lisp. but as we go through, I'll put my information in the chat and then you'll be able to reach him further. Carl, over to you.
I was about to say, and so was TD Jakes and Tony Evans. I'm in good company if that was true. Thank you, and I will really enjoy what you shared and like to pick up there. I'm gonna, since you mentioned I'm a minister, I'm gonna start with a quick story that I think is foundational to the things that I will share. I remember when my son who's an adult now, was 3 years old. We went into a department store, and you remember back in the day where you would have the gum machines, the candy machines, the peanut machines right at the front of the store, of course, to attract the kids. And so he says, Dad, can I have a quarter? Can I have a quarter? And I said, sure. We walk over to the gum machine. He puts a quarter in the gum machine. He's all happy. He puts a quarter to get like the Tic Tacs. He's really happy. He puts a quarter over into the peanut machine, and he gets a quarter. So he asked me for a quarter, and guess what I did? I reached in my front pocket and I gave him a quarter. So that's 25 cents. Had he asked me for $25 rather than 25 cents, I might not have it in my front pocket, but I would have it in my back pocket. That is, I would have the $25 in my wallet and reach in and give it to him had he asked for it. What if he had asked for not 25 cents or $25, but $250? I might not have it in my back pocket, but I would have it in my checking account. What if he had asked for $2,500? I may not have it in my checking account, but I would have it in my savings account. What if he'd asked for $25,000? I might not have it in my savings account, but I would have it in my investment account. What if he asked for double $25,000? I might have it in assets. What if he asked beyond that? Then I might have it in loan capacity or a network of resources. But guess what? When we walked up to the gum machine, he asked me for 25 cents for a quarter, and I gave him what he asked for. He didn't exhaust my ability by asking, but that was as much as he could consider, and he was happy to receive it. That's what I find out is true every day when it comes to African American businesses or businesses in our community, is that our ask is so small. And watch this. What we consider to be back pocket money is really front pocket money for most of the culture. What we consider to be a dollar amount that takes us to our checking account, our savings account, our investment account is pocket change for the other culture. And so we have to increase our ask or enrich our thinking. And so that's where I want to jump in terms of the 5 things. It was hard to get it down to 5, but I did. So let's go with that. What do I find then is necessary for increasing our ask, enriching our thinking and our abilities? The first one that I put down is the issue of clarity. As I deal with businesses all the time and spend time with consulting and ask persons about what they are doing or what they want to do, then there must be clarity in terms of their product or their service, clarity in terms of who their focus is of their client or customer base, clarity in terms of their space in the market, and that sense of no, not that I'm here to serve everyone or I'm here to do everything, but there must be a sense of clarity. Let me show you how clarity is proven. If I go to McDonald's and I see the arch outside, I already know, based on the icon and based on the menu, what is inside. And whatever is on the menu, that's what I expect when I go through the drive-through window. So what happens if, let's say, I'm hungry and I go to McDonald's, and rather than wanting a hamburger or chicken nuggets, I want a 3-piece and a pepper? Do you know what happens? Because McDonald's is focused on clarity, they will not change their menu based on my desire. They will not change their focus based on my desire. They've been serving the same thing consistently over time. They've honed their skills. They have it down, and it doesn't, regardless of how much I demand or how much I offer to them, they know what their business focus is. They have perfected a sense of clarity. They're not going to change because of me. What if beyond a 3-piece and a pepper, I want something else? I want clothing, or I want sports, or I want entertainment. They're going to stick with what their brand says and what their menu says. What the fault is in our community is not a clear sense of clarity, and that is, what am I in business for? What am I offering? What is my product or my services? Where I'm majoring and what should be in the market. You see, a kid can want to be anything and everything. When you're a small child, you can say, I want to be a policeman, and I want to be a fireman, and I want to be an astronaut, and I want to be a doctor. And the reason is because nothing is invested. No decision has been made. But as soon as you get to the point that you have to make some decisions, whether it's in junior high or middle school or in high school when you're choosing certain courses, or college when you choose a major, then you have to make clear decisions that goes along with clarity. Let me move to the second one. After a sense of clarity, the next one is a sense of competence. I can be clear about what I want to do, but the question is, do I have the competence or capability to do it? Is it the area of my core competence? So often we're attracted to things that are not us. Let me say that again. We're attracted to things that are not us. We wish that we can do. And so do you know why that first business, that second business, and the third business goes, fails or never gets off the ground? Because there's not a sense of competence. That is, I need to take the rearview mirror and ask, what is it that I've been doing all of the time? What is it that I consistently do? What is it that I deliver the right outcomes of? What is it that people notice about me? And hone in on that sense of competence. That is, do I have the skills and abilities? And as my sister says, not just simply do I have them naturally, but have I developed them? Because competence includes credibility. Competence is the base of credibility and creditability. Let me say that again. Competence includes credibility and creditability. Because if I don't have the creditability, then that means I don't have competence in financial spaces where it is necessary. Let me say this really quickly before I move to number 3, and catch this, that competence is not measured by admiration, but by activation. It's not who likes me, it's what gets done. So if I just simply have admiration, that's not competence, it is activation. It's when people follow and do, when people respond to me, when things happen, when I am approved. That leads to number 3. After clarity and competence, then we move to cost. Cost includes how much and I'm willing to invest, and cost is not always dollars. Cost is the range of resources. Cost includes dollars, cost includes time, cost includes energy, cost includes focus, cost includes our emotional investment and our emotional aptitude, cost includes our resources and our relationship. So cost is how much am I willing to invest, and in terms of that, in my return of investment, have I equalized or balanced off a sense of cost versus value? My sister said something about this. For instance, if I run out and I buy the newest car on the lot, and that's my biggest investment, that's my biggest asset, then of course I've given myself to something that is depreciating versus appreciating. Since she mentioned I'm a minister, I'm gonna throw in a quick minister story. I remember back in the day, you've heard it before. It's Sunday morning, it's offering time. My senior pastor got up and he's challenging the members. And this is what he said, you've heard it before. He said, I know that you have the money. I know that you've got it. And the reason that I know that you have it is because I've seen what you drive. I stopped, I froze. I rushed to him as soon as I could. I grabbed him literally after the service and I took him out to the parking lot. I pointed to what was out there. You know what was out there. So there are some GM cars, Mercedes, Lexuses, Range Rovers, etc., or Hondas or Toyotas and so forth. And he said, I know you have the money because I see what you drive. And I said, nope, this isn't value. This represents debt. This doesn't represent what a person has. This represents what they do not have. You know what you're looking at? You're looking at a $500 amount, $500 a month note. This doesn't represent what they have. And guess what? Not only what they do not have today, they will not have it for several more years. If they financed it for 5 years, they don't have it today and they won't have it for the next 5 years. If you wanted it, you had to get to them before the dealership got to them, because it represents what they do not have. You know, we are excited about what we do not have. What we drive is a reference to what we do not have. So we have to consider clarity, then we have to consider competence, and then cost. Number 4 is collaboration. Collaboration is that sense that whether it is, again, people resources, whether it's Project Hope, we have to have a network around us. We have to have connections beyond ourselves. We have to have an engaged network so that, again, back to number 1 of clarity, I should spend 80% of my time doing what I am best at. How often have I heard persons say, well, I really don't understand numbers. I really don't understand accounting. I really don't understand markets. I really don't understand social media. I really don't understand websites. I've got to go to class and do this and this and this. And I said, no, absolutely not. Don't. You hire to your weakness, whether that is outsourcing, whether that is networking, you hire to your weakness. If you haven't done it in the last 20 years, don't do it today. If you're a salesperson, spend your time on the floor in sales. Guess what? The car dealership has a finance person in the back office. You stay on the showroom floor and you make your money selling. Let that person handle finances. That's true in business. If you're the creative type, if you're the adventurous type, if you're the idea person, spend 80% of your time creating ideas, generating and so forth, and hire to your weakness. That is, you must collaborate because that increases number 5, and that is capacity. Do you know what? When you're multi-gifted, multi-talented, or have all of these ideas and you can do several different things, whether it's business ideas, commercial ideas, or ways for enhancement or impact in community, or even not in the business space, but let's look at what's going on. We've got COVID, we have health concerns going on, we have social concerns going on, social justice concern going on, we have an impact to the economy. Which one of these things do you respond to? It comes down to not ability, but capacity. Here's the bonus one. Do you know what I believe that every person should do? Back to clarity, you should come up with what is your number 1 yes. Don't tell her, but this is why I like my sister, because our conversations are around the same thing every day, anytime we talk, because here it is. There's a sense of clarity in what is your number 1 yes. And you should say no to anything that competes with your yes. I didn't say it was something bad. I didn't say it was horrible. I didn't say it's not something that you should do. I didn't say it wasn't something that people should enjoy. But the sense of capacity is knowing what is your yes and say no to everything that competes with your yes, because that is the foundation of your success. Turn it back to you guys.
So if any of you were to get bonus points for church, this counts. So for tomorrow, if you've missed a service anywhere in your lifetime, this counts as a church service. I want y'all to know he did everything as a preacher should do. He gave y'all the 5 points of clarity and components and such. And that's why I love my brother. But as you go through big brother, oldest brother of the family, entirely, older than all the rest of us, 7 kids, brother, when you look at the PPP loans in the distribution and they talk about the inequity and how little that we received in our community, what's the number 1 reason that you saw for that being in that professional field?
I definitely saw the combination of the things that I've just talked about, and out of that is, again, that sense of clarity, that sense that people come in and they're kind of all over the place, and so it's knowing specifically what is needed. It is having the paperwork in place. It is having the right business, having a defined business organization. For some, they've come in and they've been doing some things on the side for a time, but as simple as registering a name, or as simple as actually beginning a business entity, etc., are those things that we see that impacts us. That is, it's sort of a side gig, but it needs to be, as I said, have some credibility to it and some credit ability.
And I would agree. And I will tell you, even in the small business world, we have a small business introductory program. So if anyone is seeking a launch, it is a cohort program, takes you everywhere from the creation of your business thought onto your business plan and such. But I will tell you, I'm working with an individual now in our small business who has 7 vending machines, and he's in Connecticut, and they're in strategically placed places. And so even in doing that, I said, do you have a business plan? And he said, no. Have you done a SWOT analysis, which is looking at the strengths, weaknesses, obstacle, of course, and different things of your success? He said, what is that? Are you funding these all with your own money? Yes. And so all of those different elements, when you look about it, it's just as my brother just said, you don't really have a business. You have something that you're doing and you're creating as a hustle. And when you're looking for going to the bank and access to capital, instead of saying they're not going to lend me any money, they wouldn't anyway. I wouldn't lend you any money either. If you came to me to borrow $5 and you're asking for my money, if I want to know what it's for, and then I want to know when it's going to be returned, and I want to know if you owe other people, and all the same elements is what they look for in business. Do you have something sustainable? How much money are you making on this? I don't know. How much money you project to make? I don't know. And then, as Carl said, the ask. Most of the small business program that just came out, the PPP, our community was asking for $10,000. It wasn't profitable for banks to process a loan of $10,000. Most people were asking for, as you saw the ones in the Lamborghini and such, $2.3 million. We heard in our community where we didn't use those properly, but the ask was there, and so they were granted it. And then listen to this little tidbit. We just found out this week, it should be released, that the federal government said there were so many loans dispersed. If you had a request and you received under $150,000, you might not even be audited. So just think about that. When my brother just said your ask was not loud enough, we asked for $10,000. Somebody else is asking for $200,000. But if you got under $150,000, that might have been a way for you to really enrich and grow and sustain your business, all at the government's gift. So we want to be able to think about those different things and elements along the way. You want to piggyback off of that, my brother?
Sure. And I rushed through the illustration at the beginning, but again, it really is foundational. And I said about my son, he was 3 years old and he had 3-year-old thinking. And so when he asked me for a quarter, he did not exhaust my resources. It was not a sacrifice or anything else, but I gave him what he asked for and he was happy with it. So often in our community, we're struggling. And even if it's receiving $600 or $1,200, and certainly that is critical for those who are facing unemployment and so forth. But beyond that, from a business standpoint, it's like we have a very small ask and we're given what we asked for and we're walking out happy when we're leaving so much on the table. And then having financial statements are, in order for that, having the right financial statements are in order. Treating payroll related issues correctly in terms of who's an employee and who's 1099, not commingling funds. That is as simple as if I have a business, go tomorrow for $25 or $10, open up a business account and do transactions out of that account, not commingle. So many times I'm looking at businesses and I'm going like, wait a minute. So now why are we paying daycare out of this account? Why are we paying mortgage out of this account? Why are we paying, for your daughter's cell phone bill out of this account? Commingling gets us into a lot of trouble, both financially and certain legal issues and so forth. And so those are some very basic keys that are important. And it doesn't take a lot to do it. It can seem enormous, but it doesn't take a lot to do it if we would just simply get started and go to the professionals within that if we need that assistance.
And thank you, but I will also say when you're looking at personal credit, there's a correlation between business credit, because when you're looking at business credit, they will look at you from a personal standpoint. So if you think that your credit score is low enough from a business aspect, they're thinking it's low as well. So that does need to be improved. And brother, to your point, one thing from a business that you want to look at as well is consistency of name. And when you're looking at business credit, they look at that. And so often you see where your website has one name, your bank account has another name, and all of the other variables of your business, you have all these different aspects of your general name, and they can't tell who you are. Now, that's the number one reason for business credit denial, but you'll never hear about it. You look like you're all over the place. Another one is utilizing a P.O. box for your main address. They want to know that even if you don't have a brick and mortar business, if you have a sustainable business and it's concrete, and a P.O. box, if you can live in a P.O. box, feel free. But your business is a mailable item for a P.O. box. It's not sustainable. So you want to look at different things, and you want to make sure from a personal and business standpoint that you're set up the correct way. So someone asked a question about financial, let's see, they said something about financial discipline. And I will say, there's a quote, it's not your salary that makes you rich, it's your spending habits. So we can both have the same salary, but it's how we spend that. And I will also tell you, there's no correlation between what you make and what you spend. So when you see the high achievers in the NBA and such, and they make a large salary and then they're broke within a few years, but you see the janitor who donates somewhere in his lifetime millions of dollars to charity, it's not the correlation of how much you make, it is your spending habits. And if you're not successful in your personal spending, you're not going to be successful in your business spending. Because if you let little things go in your personal aspect, you're also going to be letting little things go in your business aspect. So there's a definite correlation of the two. And so once you start streamlining in one area, you start streamlining in the other one, and then you have success in both. Am I right, my brother?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And then in addition, even if you use an athlete, it is wealth does not come from simply ongoing effort. When I, like a machine, a machine or an animal, when I am working, it is when my money is working as hard as I am and should be working when I am not. So my money interest works overnight when I am asleep. But if I have to do all the effort, then I'm limited in capacity. The question is 100% of my income based on my own efforts, or is it based on the efforts of others, or is my money itself working for me? Of course, whether we're talking savings, investment, and otherwise.
Yeah. And that's why when you look at that gap that I talked about earlier, and you have in a 30-year period from an African American perspective, where at the end of that gap, it's the spending that took place in between that it's the difference is when one generation is purchasing homes. And if you looked at in Colorado and Washington Park, Carl, do you know that in Washington Park, if you bought a home in 2000, right, that home you probably bought for 150. That same home, the same brick, the same foundation, the same seed of grass that could have been growing all of this time, it's now worth like $1.2 million. Wow. So the same home. So when you think about it from a generational wealth aspect, and when we talk about home ownership, and it's so very strong in that element, it is because it is your greatest source of wealth and building wealth within your community and other communities. And often we think that we're paralyzed by that fear. But when we talked about a minute ago as the get quick rich schemes, that is one when you're talking about collaboration with your family, buy a home together. Even if you don't like each other, put each other on the title. You don't have to speak while that home is gaining wealth overnight, but buy a home. And then when you sell it, then guess what? The proceeds are distributed evenly between all of you. So I don't like my brother, but I would buy a home with him. I told him to move to North Carolina with me a few weeks ago because I found a house on a lake for $150,000, and he said, yeah, he was going to come.
That's right.
But know that there are elements and opportunities that are within your control financially. It's not despair. I just told you our cultural has more spending than any other cultural collectively, but we have more revenue as well to our disposal from the efforts of our own parents and grandparents that made it affordable and available from an education standpoint and such. But it's what we're doing with it. It just comes down to day. What are you doing? Why are you looking good? Don't ask me for money to pay your light bill. Why are you looking good?
Right. Well, I know that this is a community conversation, and I'll say this very quickly. So as a community conversation, there are two very popular and present and very important conversations that are going on. One is community beyond social justice. One is community development, and the other is nuances, the community gardens that's popularized. In community gardens, what it takes is they both start with dirt. And for a community garden to happen, you start with dirt and you have to till and nurture and turn that dirt, make sure it has its nutrients in it, and you place seed within the dirt and water it, of course, to have a community garden. For community development, you start with dirt, but you must move dirt, kill dirt. You must use lime with the dirt, stabilize the dirt. And the difference is you're going to cover that dirt with a foundation. You dig much deeper, but you dig deeper because you're going higher. In a community garden, then, if you do the right thing in the dirt with a community garden, you'll eat from it. If you do the right thing with community development with the dirt, you'll live in it. And as a challenge to our community, we've got to do both. We have to build things. We have to have a garden and a development in our business concept so that we can live in it and eat from it.
So that's sermon number 2, you all. If you did not make it to church anywhere in your lifetime,
no, those are business principles.
Number 2.
Right. He said business principles. That's right. All right, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us. We did post out Noreen's information for those of you that are here locally in Denver and would like to get in touch with her. And aren't you over a region, Noreen?
Actually, yes. If you want to get in touch with me, I am over a 7-state region within Operation Hope. But you can reach me. Any of your friends can reach me. If they're trying to borrow money from you, send them to me. My phone number is 720-266-3394. Tell them I ain't got it, but I know somebody who can get you a budget so you can have it and then you can loan it to me in a few months. So again, that's 720-266-3394. Noreen Lavallias with Operation Hope.
Absolutely. And we did drop that information into the chat. And Carl, we just want to thank you for joining with us. Your sister is over here trying to
join because I allowed him to come and invited him. Because he don't do nothing all day long but sitting by that gold wall. So
sibling rivalry at its best. It's civil.
That's right.
Sibling rivalry. There we go. At its best. But yes, absolutely. This is great information. We appreciate everyone for joining in. Before we get out of here, I definitely want to make sure everyone knows that tickets are on sale for the Black Boss Summit. So make sure that you go ahead and get those. This year is virtual, so you want to make sure that you are in the building. So the Black Boss in the virtual building, be in the virtual, don't be in the actual building. It's not going to be there. Be in the virtual building, the Black Boss Summit. We're talking about how to pivot, position, and profit in the new norm. And so we know that our businesses were hit particularly hard this year. And so we want to make sure also that you know that if for whatever reason you are unable to afford a ticket, please do contact us. We have had organizations that are donating tickets to make sure that no Black entrepreneur is left out of this conversation. Please do contact us. We can get you a ticket. If you are able to support the summit, please do purchase your ticket. We have it at a very low cost. This is not a Zoom. We have live entertainment. We have breakout sessions. We have amazing speakers from all across the country. So you want to stay tuned in. You can go to blackbosssummit.com to do that. Look, somebody said it's sibling love. That's what we're seeing today. Sibling love. All right. Shout out to everyone who has joined us. Thank you again, everyone. This has been another Black Dollar Saturday. We can't wait to see you again live and in person. And we will be tuned in next time.
Thank you, Jice. Thank you for the invitation. Much love.